I'd like to thank everybody for joining the first of our webinar series on Microsoft Fabric. My name is 𝗪𝗲𝗵𝗶. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for TrueNorth Group. And to my right, I've got 𝗃𝗏𝗏. 𝗃𝗏𝗏 is one of our senior consultants, and 𝗃𝗏𝗏 will be handling the technical part of the demo. So just a little bit of an intro on TrueNorth Group. TrueNorth Group was established in 2015, and we're a Microsoft data and AI partner, as well as in the software development arena. We work mainly in the Microsoft space, so that's the reason for today's demo and a little bit of an intro on what you can do with Microsoft Fabric. Thank you, 𝗃𝗏𝗏. So in terms of how we engage with our clients, we've got three main streams. The first is on the advisory side, where we would normally engage with an exco level and help them in terms of their strategic planning for, sorry, I'm just admitting some more people there. Apologies. There we go. So yeah, as I said, there's three main streams of engagement. The one is on the advisory side, where we would engage with exco level in terms of strategizing and putting down a data strategy, an AI strategy, and just understanding where it is that the business would want to go and what their KPIs are. Secondly, there's the professional services side. That's really the engine room of the business. That's where all the work gets done, and that's where our data analytics competency as well as software devs sit. The last is on the solutions side. That's where we've got some pre-built solutions, which we won't go into too much detail today, but there's some very nice offerings in terms of pricing and promotion ecosystems that we can discuss at a later stage. I'm going to hand over to 𝗃𝗏𝗏 now to give us a little bit of an overview on Microsoft Fabric, what you can do with the platform, and thank you very much, 𝗃𝗏𝗏.
Thank you. So Microsoft Fabric is an end-to-end data and analytics platform. So it caters for all your different data competencies, from your data integration to data engineering to data warehousing to data science. It offers real-time analytics, and it integrates with business intelligence through Power BI. So instead of having all of these things separately, for example, accessing your data warehouse through Oracle Developer, your ETL servers through SSMS, and integrating your processes through SSIS on Visual Studio, and then having to build your reports on Power BI, you have all of this in one place.
𝗃𝗏𝗏, I'm sorry for interrupting you. So again, sometimes, obviously, we're sitting in a live webinar here, and there's something very important that I forgot to mention, and that is, if you guys have any questions that you want to pose to us, you're welcome to put those questions in the chat. We also have some of our other consultants online that will be able to help with fielding those questions. And at the end of the session, we will have a few minutes just to answer some of your questions. Apologies.
No worries, thank you. Right, so OneLake is like a OneDrive for data, which is automatically provisioned with every Fabric tenant. So this is built on top of Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2 and supports any file type, structured or unstructured. All Fabric data items like data warehouses and lakehouses will automatically store their data in OneLake in Delta Parquet format. To be able to use Microsoft Fabric, Fabric must be enabled in your tenant by either your Fabric admin, which is formerly known as your Power BI admin, your Power Platform admin, or Microsoft 360 admin. Then you can obviously use Microsoft Fabric. So what is a lakehouse? A lakehouse combines the functionality of a data lake and a data warehouse. From the data lake, you have the functionality of scalable distributed file storage, flexible schema on read semantics, and big data technology compatibility. From the data warehouse, you have the functionality of relational schema modeling, SQL-based querying, and this is a proven basis for reporting and analytics. The lakehouse also automatically creates a serving layer by generating a SQL analytics endpoint and a default semantic model during creations, which means you can query your lakehouse through SQL queries automatically. So you can also reference your data with a shortcut. A shortcut is the same way as you would have a shortcut on your desktop. It creates a virtual access point, which simply points to your actual data stored in Amazon Web Services, Azure, or in your OneLake. When it comes to data engineering, the Synapse data engineering experience in Microsoft Fabric enables you to implement data transformations the way you want with the tools you prefer. For code-based ETL, you can use Spark notebooks written in Python, Java, or R, or simply execute Spark jobs with your own code. And for the most common scenarios, you can create low-code UI-based pipelines with data pipelines and data flows Gen 2, which we will be demonstrating a little bit later. You can run data flows on the cloud. So pipelines in Microsoft Fabric encapsulate a sequence of activities that perform data movement and processing tasks. You can use a pipeline to define data transfer and transformation activities and orchestrate these activities through control flow activities that manage branching, looping, and other typical logic. To compare this would be basically you setting up an SSIS package where you have different components where you can ingest, transform, and load your data into different places.
I just have to say this does look a lot easier than the SSIS.
It is.
And I'm guessing a lot more functionality as well.
Absolutely. And again, it has the drag and drop functionality because it's UI based.
And I'm sure you're going to get to it, but there's multiple connections available. So you can literally connect to just about any data source out there, structured and unstructured.
Correct. And I will be showing you a little bit about that later.
Nice. Thank you.
So if you're a Power BI user, you already use Power Query to get and transform your data. Data flows are a type of cloud-based ETL tool for building and executing scalable data transformation processes based on Power Query. So we'll be creating a data flow a little bit later on and then using that in a pipeline. So all the graphs that you see on the screen here, I will show and explain to you a little bit later. Of course, some scenarios require more advanced data preparation transformation tasks. That could be the case if you are leveraging machine learning within your processes. For these scenarios, you can run Spark jobs and Spark notebooks. You can author these notebooks directly from the web interface. And thanks to the serverless compute, you can start executing these notebooks within seconds, no longer in minutes. And even if you don't have access to manage the compute, you can still have access to the Spark logs generated during the execution. So you can still track how your notebooks are running. Right, so basically in this demo, we are going to create a lakehouse, create a data flow, ingest the data with a pipeline. We're going to have a look at the table information and then utilize the SQL endpoint.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm sure this is what everybody's looking forward to. So Riet's going to move over to a live demo for us now. Thanks, Riet.
Let me just hydrate here. Right, so this is my workspace. If we are starting with an empty workspace, clearly you can see there's nothing here yet, but here you can see all the different analytic portions for your data, guys. So we're going to start with data engineering, and we are going to create a lakehouse. I'm going to call this lakehouse.
So this is obviously a store for the data. You need somewhere to put this data that you are now going to extract from somewhere. So this is exactly what that is, right?
Correct. And everything will be stored in here and accessed through here.
So we're not going into the detail of exactly what is a lakehouse and the architecture of it. I mean, there's obviously a lot to cover in that as well. But just to simplify it a little bit, this would be a store for the data.
Correct. Right, so now my lakehouse is created. So instead of just using this, I'm going to show you their data warehouse inside. if we go here, I am first going to create a data flow. So you can see successfully created SQL Analytics endpoint. Like I said, it automatically creates it for you. Right, so I'm going to create a data flow.
So this is a new concept, right? Of creating a flow and then a pipeline, or was that already in the old Synapse environment as well?
So it would be, but it would be in different environments with different connections. This is all in one place. So I am going to use a text CSV just for simplicity's sake, but you can see how many different data sources you have access to. And they were nice enough to filter it down here for us, group it for us. So you can see you have access to various databases. You can access Power Platform, go to Azure, you can access different online services. So it's not limited to what we will be showing you. In fact, it has a wide variety of options.
And Microsoft also builds that out the time. So if there's potentially a new cloud platform or a new database or something, then they would build this out.
Correct, yes. So we are just going to use a text CSV, and I'm going to upload this from my OneDrive.
Good old CSV data source. For demos, right?
Old school. All right. So I'm going to start with date. You'll see my connection strings are automatically populated in your, as expected. You can have a bit of a preview of the data. Create it. Right. From here, I'm just going to rename my data flow so it makes sense to me. It's date, data flow. Any other developer, I'm using shorthand. So you'll see it's going to create a table here, and I want it to go to my lakehouse. So that is the output point.
And this is the lakehouse that you created earlier, correct?
Correct. So I'm going to select the lakehouse that I want it to be processed into, which is this one here. And that's the lakehouse we created today. So I'm going to call it the table name date. It's going to be a new table because I have nothing in there yet.
Does it automatically create a schema? So picked up from the CSV what the schema should be, and it just creates it for you, right?
And that's the semantic model it creates by itself.
Okay. But you can edit it. So if you wanted to do some transformations, you can edit it and then.
Correct, yes. So I'm not going to use automatic settings just to show you. You can use an append or replace method. My experience, if you're going to do a dim date, then replacing it's perfectly fine. We use the dynamic schema, and you can see here what my my data types are. So obviously you can change it here if you feel the need to. And leave it as is.
And that dynamic schema caters for schema drift if there's the potential for that.
Correct, yes. So if I add anything into it, it would automatically update my schema. If it's a fixed schema, it would ignore any other columns that I add into it. Right, so you can see I have my source here. It's adding my headers there, change the column there for me automatically, a data type, and I added my lakehouse for my destination. So I'm going to publish this. And while it creates it, because you'll see, there we go, it's already there. All right, so I'm going to do this for a couple of other items I have there, just to show you. I'm going to query the data. That's this fact. All right, so I'm not going to show you all the data sources again, so I'm going to use the shortcut that's already available here to me. This is it. And you can see the data flow was published successfully. So while it's busy running in the background, you can continue with what you need to do. So you don't have to wait for it to finish before you continue with the next one.
But has that been executed now? What I mean is the data actually been
Not.
Sucked up from the CSV and dumped into the lakehouse, or have we just created the structure for it?
I just created the data flow for it.
Okay.
I have not run it yet, therefore the table will not exist yet. A data flow can be executed manually, can be scheduled, can be used in a pipeline and then scheduled and run. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add it to a pipeline and then I'm going to run it. So this is sales.
Can a pipeline contain more than one data flow?
Yes, it can. And that's exactly what I'm going to demonstrate today. Sales data flow. To go to my lakehouse again. Just for interest's sake, you can see that I can select various lakehouses in my workspace, which means I can create a data flow on the one hand, but use the data from another lakehouse. I'm not going to do that, but you have the capability there. Sales, new table. In this instance, chances are I do not want to replace my table because this is in fact my fact table. So every time this data set runs, I would have to append the data into it. This is something nice that they've added. They're saying, listen, there's some odd characters in there. Should they fix it for me? And I do want them to. All right, so if you have any special characters in your naming conventions, then they cater for it and they remove it for you, which makes your data cleansing a lot easier and faster. All right, so I'm going to publish this one once again. Okay, so while this is running, once again, just add another one. Okay, CSV. It's done. Okay, I'm going to add my lakehouse once again. So if you don't add an endpoint, your business analysts can still use this data flow as a data source. So you don't have to pass it into your lakehouse. I just want the data to pass through in this instance. Yeah. So once again, if it's product, I'll replace it, dynamic schema, fix it for me, and save. Publish. Right, so something that I didn't cover here is if I go here and go to edit it, I can also do transformations on this data flow itself. Right, so if you just have a look at the options you have on top here, you can do your sorting here. So if I know that they are going to sort by month, for example, and this is my dim date, basically I'm creating here. I'm going to search for my month, select it. I'm going to sort it from highest to lowest to highest, because I would want January before December. And you'll see that it added the sorted rows into my sequence of events here. Okay. Right. You can, of course, also add a column. You can have a custom column in there. You can do some calculations here. So you can do most of your transforms here.
Yeah, so your typical transforms would happen in that.
Yes, and everything that you add here is automatically added to your sequence of events. So I'm going to just publish it again. Right. Then I'm going to create a data pipeline. So I'm going to use these data flows in my pipeline. So I'm just going to call it sales pipeline. Get it. Add a pipeline activity. I'm going to use a data flow because that's what I'm going to add to this. I'm going to call my first data flow same as I called it earlier, date data flow. And I'm going to go down here to settings, right? And I'm going to choose which data flow to use. So either you can create one here, or you can just add one that's already been created.
So those are the ones that you created earlier.
Correct. And again, you can see you can use data flows from different workspaces, right? So I'm going to keep to the one that I've just created, use a date data flow, and then from here, I'm going to add another one. So this should be pretty familiar to most people who's used SSIS before. It automatically sets it to on success. Same way as in SSIS, you can choose when to move on to your next process, right? If it's on fail, if it doesn't matter whether or not this loaded, you can do, even if it fails, go to the next one. On completion as opposed to on success, you can go to the next one. So you can have those various settings in here as well. Right, so make sure that you selected the right one. Very nice visual, so you can see which one you're working with. I'm going to do my product next. And I'm just giving them the names, the same naming conventions for ease of use. Did I not rename my other one? So that should maybe be my product. Just double check this. Yeah, this is my product.
Yeah, it's the product one.
All right, so it's quite simple to go back and forth in case you forget something like I did. Right, so you see it threw me back out here. You'll see on the side, on the left, it actually keeps open the workspaces or the items that you're busy with, right? So I'm going to go back to my sales pipeline. There we go. And I have my product data flow here. Add one more. Sales. Sales here. And that's going to be the end of my pipeline. Right, so from here, I'm going to first save my pipeline. As is. Save completed. And then I'm going to run it from here. Right. And then you'll see how it runs.
You don't have to publish the pipeline the way that you do with the data flow. You just save it.
Correct. You save it instead of publishing it in this instance. Yes.
I suppose one is because it's the process. The other one is almost like a whole
Sequence.
Yeah.
So it takes a little bit of time to write the data right now, but that makes you read a lot faster because it's writing it to Parquet.
Okay.
And Parquet files have certain advantages where it sorts certain things. It is based on column store, not row store. So your write takes a little bit longer, but that makes you read almost instantaneous.
So it's columnar instead of tabular, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. So you can see it refreshes, I think, every 4 seconds-ish, 8 seconds. 6 in this instance.
Okay. I see we have 2 questions in the chat. I'll have the guys have a look at those questions now, if they are quick to answer. Otherwise, we can, if there's a few minutes available at the end, then we'll quickly go through them.
Okay, so you can see date has been loaded successfully, ingested successfully. We're on product data flow now.
So just for those that are joining that haven't registered while we're waiting for this process, this is obviously the first webinar in a series that we've launched on Microsoft Fabric. There's 3 more webinars coming up. I think the next one is on the Power BI side, and we also have one that's based on real-time analytics next week, and there'll be a data science one as well. So if you guys want to join for those, that would be great.
Yes, and by that time you'll be familiar with what you're seeing now because everything looks very similar.
Yeah. And the reason why we chose the data engineering one first is typically because that is the process you would follow when you build something for a client, because obviously you need the data first before you can start building anything. I mean, I'm laughing now because for us it's like
it's logical.
It's logic, but some people might not follow that process, or they might not understand why did we choose the data engineering first.
Yes, because we make the data analyst job easier by giving them the data beforehand.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So you can see we're busy processing the sales portion now.
And so interesting. I mean, I'm guessing the first time that this pipeline's running, it takes a bit longer. From here on, if they run it again, obviously it's dependent on the volume of data, but I'm guessing it won't take as long because there's a lot of provisioning that needs to happen. And
correct. So in the instance of the sales, for example, it will only append the new data, which is why I selected that specifically. Yes. Otherwise, you would go back and replace your data every time, which is usually counterproductive, especially when it's a fact table.
But I mean, that depends on the use case.
So you have to
sometimes you need to append, sometimes you replace. It depends on what the data is.
Correct. Yes. All right. So the pipeline has processed successfully. So I can just go back to my VentureWorks, and I am going to just refresh this. And there you go. All right, so I want to show you something. So with Fabric, you have one copy of the data, but what does that mean? It means that it is stored initially, right? Because like I said, it's written to 𝗪𝗲𝗵𝗴𝗲𝗵 files, right? Let me just refresh this one as well. Okay, so it doesn't have it here. Because I'm in a different space. Right, so you'll see the date table here, all right? Normal columns, the same way you'd see in your SQL Server Management Studio. And if I click on it, it will give me a preview of the data. So what I do want to point out is this is rendering the Parquet data into a table view. Okay. It is not loading the table into an actual table. So if I was in SQL Server Management Studio, if I go and create a table, it would actually copy and paste the data into that table. In this instance, it does not. It simply renders it into a table view and format, but it's still reading the Parquet file.
It's actually stored at the lowest level in a Parquet format.
Correct. So this is a Delta format. It did not rewrite the data, it's simply displaying it as a table. So if you were creating a view in SQL Server Management Studio, you know that it's the structure that's there, but not the underlying data. It's simply reading from. Same principle here. All right, so I can go here. All right, so that's just my product. So you can see I'm in my lakehouse here. So if I look at the bottom at the top right here, I'm going to click on it and go to my SQL Analytics endpoint. Then I'm just quickly going to find my query. For ease of use, I did not have that. I know how to write SQL.
I see there was a question, I apologize. There was a question around, will we be sharing the recording? And yes, we will definitely be sharing all of the recordings. So please just stay abreast of our socials, and we will be hosting it on YouTube, so you guys will be able to watch the recording.
Right, so from here, and create a new SQL query. So that's the analytics endpoint that was automatically created previously. And I'm just going to select all from product. So again, it has 𝗘𝗴𝗵𝗵𝗴𝗴 enabled, and I'm just going to run this. Right, so standard SQL query, as you would have anywhere else. You can see your information, your data. You can save it as a view. You can save the query itself. This, it again. To else.
Yes.
Okay, so I did what I usually do in SQL. I just selected the portion that I want to run, and I just ran it. That was autopilot. All right, so I can also do select
Top 100.
Yeah, select some. I can do group by. I can do all of this. But if I'm not a SQL person, I can go to a new visual query.
This is like a query builder.
Yes, one of my colleagues was very excited about this. It's like, this is the way to go. So instead of writing my SQL code, I can just pull my table in here. So I just told it that I want to query the sales table here. I want to manage my columns, right? So which columns do I actually want to query? I do not want all of them. I want to count my sales by order number should be unique. So I'll do counting of the order numbers by date. I can do a sum of the sales if I want to. Let me do this one. All right. Okay, and I'm going to group by. Just do that. Items going to now.
Just need this. Yeah,
Yes. Transform to group by. Order date to count distinct. By. Okay, so apparently it's saying no to me. Okay, let's pick another column. Okay, so I just deleted that portion, right? Choose columns. I can choose my columns again. Sales by date then. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to sum the sales by order date. And it will do the calculation here for me. And if I really want to, I can just do a sort here. Latest first. Yeah, and you see everything I click is automatically added into this line here. Okay, and then you can save it. You can view the SQL. I think
I like to view SQL because now what you can obviously do is, let's say you have to build quite a
hectic
intricate
interaction.
query, this can be a good start. You know, it will give you a base, and then you can take the SQL and take that further.
Correct.
So it speeds up the SQL writing quite a bit.
Correct. And you can edit it here. So just something that I've noted is if I do a distinct count, for example, it's not catering for it just yet, but a lot of this is still in development and they keep advancing it, obviously. But yeah, then you can view the SQL, you can edit it, you can save it as a view, which obviously is just read from that point in time. Thank you, Archie.
Thank you very much, Riet. I think there's just one more final slide that we want to show. It's just basically the contact details of TrueNorth. Now, if anybody wants to make contact with us, you're welcome to reach out to me directly or just send an email to info@truenorthgroup.co.za. And then we'll be able to assist you. This is obviously something that we do on a daily basis. We help clients get value from their data. That's essentially what we do. I think I'm going to leave a few minutes just for Q&A. I'm quickly going to go into the Q&A and maybe throw some questions out there. So I see that we've already answered the one around can it read from on-prem sources. So thanks very much for that, Luke. I see that you've shared a link there for that question. So applying or adding an endpoint is good industry practice, I believe.
So it makes it easier to access. That endpoint is literally so that you can query the data through SQL. Otherwise, you have a lakehouse and you have to create it yourself. But I mean, as a data engineer, I use SQL queries so often just to test data, just to test queries, things like that. So yes, definitely.
And there's a question around data processing. Let's see if we can answer that now. If there's any questions we can't answer now, we'll obviously reach out to you guys directly. The question is, what best practice should one apply to ensure processing time is faster, but still maintains the proper validations and processing of the flow?
So it would be the same as with any SQL query. Like, for example, what I did with fact, right? I know that I don't necessarily want to repopulate the last 2 years' sales data every time I run a query. I would rather append the new information that comes through. And then, of course, with Fabric, it automatically does things like reordering for you. When you query data, it does query folding, so it optimizes your queries for you. So a lot of the things that we have to manage on SQL Server now is being managed for us, which is really nice. But yeah, obviously you need to understand what data you're processing and then see, do you append, do you add into it, how do you build your models, all of those things.
I think that's key in any data project, is around context and understanding the data that you're working with. You can't just go ahead and import everything and just do an append. You know, you have to understand what are you working with, what kind of volumes are we talking about, you know, what's the frequency of the updates, all of those things. It's very important, you know, before you can even start building any pipeline. All right, let's see if there's anything else. Yeah, obviously, thanks for that, Luke. Some features is still in preview. So what we've shown you guys today is still in preview. Some of it might change in the next couple of months, but I think it will be more kind of tweaking than massive changes that will come through. Then there's a question around, do you need to configure Fabric and upsize for larger data sets, or is it serverless compute? So
it's serverless compute because it's based on ADSL Gen 2 storage.
Yes.
But obviously your SKUs would depend on how much processing power you still have. Because it's still based on Microsoft environment.
What I'll also do is, so I mean, the licensing for Microsoft Fabric is quite complex. So there's 2 very nice blog posts that I found that basically explains the different licensing models and how you can get into Fabric quite easily, because there's a pay per use and there's a capacity license. So it depends on what you want to do. But I believe you can still have free access to Fabric. So if you go to your Azure portal, you can provision a free Fabric instance to play around with.
Yes, yes, okay.
Okay. Right. How is data governance managed in the data lake?
So it's still role-based. So you set up your users, your environments. So the same way that you would manage any of your other Microsoft users, whether it's tenant-based or if it's workspace-based or if it's literally data set-based, you still manage all of those, who has access to what and when.
And I think that concludes our session for today. Like I said earlier, we will be sharing the recordings, so please check on our socials once they do appear on the YouTube and everywhere. You can maybe just show them the slide, how to contact us if there's anything. Something that I didn't mention earlier in the presentation is that we've got 3 offices in South Africa. Well, actually, there's a Paarl office as well, which is a satellite office, but our head office is based in Centurion. We've got an office in Cape Town, George, and then the satellite office in Paarl. And then we're very excited because we've opened up an office in the US in Charlotte. So yeah, I think there's coverage wherever you might find yourself. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a good day.